Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being here in TikTok. And thank you so much for being here on YouTube. I see so many people in TikTok. Please double tap the screen and share the live. I can't believe there's so many people here. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for being here. If you are in YouTube land, please like the live, subscribe to the channel, and share the live if you can. Thank you so much for being here in TikTok. If you are in TikTok land and you want to come to YouTube land, it's fun. In YouTube land, we have a little more freedom than we do in TikTok. So let's just get into it. We're going to be talking about the Coolidge effect and how one woman will never be enough to the male. And we're going to talk about all of these phenomenons and how it plays a part in the performance of femininity and sexuality. So this is read from Tumblr, and it says weaponized femininity is just patriarchy. So-called empowered sex work is just patriarchy. Seduction power is just patriarchy. If you have no power unless a man is pleased, you're powerless. If you have no money for food and shelter unless a man is horny, you're powerless. You're not living like a real person. Your entire life revolves around some man's erection. You cannot claim to truly love and respect women if you consume pornography in any capacity. This is a radical feminist mindset, and I suggest that all women pick up Andrea Dworkin's book on pornography. I think it was published in 1981, but I have to go back and check. It will have you looking at porn from a different perspective. So let's get into it. Thank you so much for being here. I see you all tapping the screen and TikTok. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all of the likes. Thank you for the rose. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for the rose. Thank you for the hearts. I appreciate that. If you are in YouTube land, please like the live and share it. Thank you for being here. If you are in YouTube land, if you are in TikTok, I see people in the TikTok land. Thank you so much for being here. Wow, 70 people. Thank you, thank you, thank you for that. Okay, so let's get into it. The Coolidge effect is defined as a decline in the propensity of a male to copulate repeatedly with the same female combined with a heightened sexual interest in novel females. Did you all get that? You want me to read it again? I can read it again. So this is what it says. The Coolidge effect is defined as a decline in the propensity of a male to copulate repeatedly with the same female combined with a heightened sexual interest in novel females. The adjective definition for the word novel in this context means what is new and is derived from the Latin word novellas from the early 16th century. So novel means new, like a new person, a new woman. Further, this is what it said about the Coolidge effect in male pattern sexual behavior. The Coolidge effect is a biological phenomenon seen in animals whereby males exhibit renewed sexual interest whenever a new female is introduced, even after sex with prior but still available sexual partners. So we're going to read more about the Coolidge effect. Thank you so much, TikTok. You guys are really doing it up in TikTok. I really appreciate you all for kind of being here. Thank you so much for the rose. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. So let's just do a little reading. And I love this topic because when I speak about how women are conditioned to believe that they're magical, I always think about the Coolidge effect because you're not magical. And once the male is done with you, once he's done with your body, you're as good as done for. But women don't believe that. This is why they continue to jump through hoops for the male, arousal, for his pleasure, right? And we're going to get into thought transference. We always talk about that, or I always talk about that, how the male is able to transfer his innermost desires to your thought and thinking patterns. And we see this all the time. And this is what happens when you are in close proximity to the male. You are receptive to his way of thinking, his way of acting, his chaos. Notice that when women are alone, they're fine. But when a male is introduced into the dynamic, it becomes dramatic. It always becomes dramatic. And this is why it's so important for women, biological women, to have their own spaces, because we've seen biological men at play. And we know that when they do get into the spaces of women, they're chaotic, they're filled with drama, they love the cat fight. It gives them an erection. Thank you, TikTok. Thank you so much, TikTok. So let's get the reading. This is going to be good. Well, to me, it's good. I love shit like this. So, um, let's read it. Okay, so it says, and we're going to go from the beginning. The Coolidge effect is a biological phenomenon seen in animals whereby males exhibit renewed sexual interest whenever a new female is introduced, even after sex with prior but still available sex partners. To a lesser extent, the effect is also seen among females with regard to their mates, but to a lesser extent. The Coolidge effect can be attributed to an increase in sexual responsiveness and a shortening of the sexual refractory period. So some people are saying, what is the sexual refractory period? Okay, let's read it. In human sexuality, the refractory period is usually the recovery phase after orgasm, during which it is physiologically impossible for males to have additional orgasms. This phase begins immediately after ejaculation and lasts until the excitement phase of the human sexual response cycle begins. Okay? So that's that period where he's done, if that makes sense. Okay? So then it says the evolutionary benefit to this phenomenon is that the male can fertilize multiple females. The male may be reinvigorated repeatedly for successful insemination of multiple females. This type of mating system can be referred to as polygyny, where one male and in both sexes. Right? So that's basically what it is. And we're going to get more into it. And we're going to read about sexual reproduction. Right? Thank you so much for that, TikTok. Please double tap the screen. I see you double tapping the screen. I already have about um, 4,000 likes. Can we get to 5,000 likes? Thank you so much for doing that. Thank you so much for tapping the screen. Thank you for being here as well. I appreciate that. And if you are in YouTube land, please like the live. Please don't forget to subscribe. Hello to all of the new followers on YouTube. I appreciate you all. I saw my little following go up a little bit with the I think it's with the Deja Huckabuck story. I saw a lot of people view that and comment on that video. So thank you for watching that. I appreciate that. So let's go to the origins of the term Coolidge effect, and we're going to get right into that. So it says behavioral endocrinologist Frank A. Beach claims in a 1974 letter to have introduced the term Coolidge effect either in 1958 or 1959. And it says an old joke about Calvin Coolidge when he was president. The president and Mrs. Coolidge were being shown separately around an experimental government farm. When Mrs. Coolidge came to the chicken yard, she noticed that a rooster was mating very frequently. She asked the attendant how often that happened and was told dozens of times each day. Miss Coolidge said, tell that to the president when he comes by. Upon being told, the president adds the same. Is it the same hen every time? The reply was, oh no, Mr. President, a different hen every time. And then the president said, tell that to Mrs. Coolidge. The joke appears in a 1972 book, Aggression in Men and Animals by Roger and Johnson. And that's on, I guess, page 94 of that book. Thank you so much for being here again. So that was on, so that's page 94. And let's go to the empirical evidence. It says the original experiments with rats applied the following protocol. A male rat was placed into an enclosed large box with 4 or 5 female rats in heat. He immediately began to mate with all the female rats repeatedly until he eventually became exhausted. The females continued nudging and licking him, yet he did not respond. When a novel female, remember novel in this context means new, was introduced into the box, he became alert and began to mate once again with the new female. This phenomenon is not limited to common rats. The Coolidge effect is attributed to an increase in dopamine levels and the subsequent effect upon an animal's limbic system. In a study conducted by Filorino, male rats were used to study the role of mesolimbic dopamine system on their sexual behavior. In their experiment, microdialysis was used to monitor. Thank you, TikTok. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for the rose. Thank you so much for double tapping the screen. Let's get to 10K likes. And if you are in YouTube land, please like the live, share the live, engage with the live so that we can get into the algorithm. But let's get back to the reading. Thank you so much, TikTok. TikTok is really showing me a lot of love today. I appreciate that. In their experiment, microdialysis was used to monitor dopamine influx from a nucleus accumbens during 3 stages of sexual behavior. These include copulation, sexual satiety, and the reinitiation of sexual behavior. So, this is basically what it is. These rats were put into a box, one male rat, a few female rats in heat. He mates with all of them until he's exhausted. This is what it's saying. And even though he's exhausted, it takes one new female rat to pique his interest, and he mates with that new female even though he's already exhausted. And how can we see that in male behavior today? Don't we see that in male behavior today, how there's so many men who have access to sex? They do. Some of them are married. How many married men are out there that are actually with their wives? They sleep with their wives, but for some reason, they have this desire to go outside of their marriage for the novel, the new female. And we see that all the time. There's no other single man on the planet more than the married man. We say that all the time. Married men are more single than single men in regards to their presence on dating apps, their presence in your DMs, my DMs, everyone DMs. So the married man, even though he has access to sex, he does have his wife at home. He's still not satisfied with that situation that he's in. And that's just interesting because it talks about how, even though this phenomenon happened with rats, we see this happen with the adult male and how his sexual proclivities he's never satisfied. Never satisfied. And it says results from this study found that overall there was a significant increase in dopamine efflux in response to both the first female and the second female. During copulation with the first female, concentrations of dopamine in these male rats showed a significant increase. However, when the same female was presented again, a significant increase in dopamine was not observed. So even though he's sleeping with you, it's kind of like the okey doke again. He's getting his satisfaction, but he's not really getting anything from that. It's kind of like a release, but he's not really getting that dopamine hit that he would have gotten with a new female, a new rat in this context. It says when a novel female was presented initially, there was a small increase in the levels of dopamine. However, after continued copulation with the novel female, a significant increase in dopamine levels was observed. Then it says, from these results, they concluded that an increase in mesolimbic dopamine influx is associated with the appetitive and consumatory stages of sexual behavior in male rats. Your data also suggests that stimuli associated with the novel female, thank you, TikTok, thank you so much for that, may increase dopamine transmission in a rat that is sexually satisfied and hence have a role in the reinitiation of sexual behavior. So he's never satisfied. And when we speak about this, it's so funny because I always say that the wrong gender is on birth control. The wrong gender is on birth control. And because so many women have been placed on birth control, we see that even men, if you left them to the task, they can get multiple women pregnant a night. So, because the Coolidge effect attempts to outline male sexual behavior, and we just heard about the rats in this example, let's discuss this effect in the dynamics of male and female relationships and how we can observe on a societal level that the Coolidge effect does affect the adult human male and how he interacts with his female counterpart. We can start with marriage. Thank you so much again, TikTok. If you are in YouTube land, please like the live, share the live as well. Thank you for being here again in TikTok land. Wow, thank you. We can start with marriage and make the claim that although the male in American societies was provided with a female by law, his satisfaction for sex was not met inside of that marriage. On the contrary, reports of sex workers since the dawn of time have all claimed that their biggest clientele were not single men, but married ones, who we all know later brought sexually transmitted diseases back home to their trusting wives, right? We see this all the time. This is male lust, and it has always traveled outside of the confines of marriage, public sexual orientation, and even religion. His desire for sex is well documented, and we have the porn industry to show for his real feelings behind his unquenchable sexual appetite, right? Let's read this Reddit post about the Coolidge effect. Hold on. So, this is what it says. It says, does the Coolidge effect mean that monogamy in humans is unnatural? And this was posted by Old Rope. And the question is, for those who don't know, the Coolidge effect is a phenomenon seen in animal species whereby males, and to a lesser extent females, exhibit renewed sexual interest if introduced to a new receptive sexual partner, even after cessation of sex with prior but still available sexual partners. The effect is observed in humans as well. This also means that a male eventually gets bored of the same female and will prefer to find new females to mate with. Does that mean that monogamy is unnatural for us human beings and thus inherently unsustainable? Our sexuality is overpowering for the majority of humans. So, this post is archived. This is an archived post, and came out a little while ago, but let's read some of the responses to this Reddit. It says, while this may be true on a sexual level, it does not consider other factors like companionship, financial security, social stability, raising children, etc., most of which are important aspects of life for the majority of men. In other words, I think social norms have normalized monogamy. This makes sense for a man to say this. It makes sense for a man to say that, well, monogamy has been normalized. And this is so complicated because on one hand, we have the male and we have patriarchy, and we have the fact that patriarchy kind of set men up to have their ready-made appliance at home, the wife. And in the wife, you get everything with this appliance, right? I think Bourbon Bougie always says the appliance. So that's her reference. But the appliance would be, you get sex, you get someone to clean, you get someone to cook, and you get someone to raise your children. So even in that dynamic, for him, monogamy is not enough. Even though all of his needs are getting met by one person, he's still never satisfied. And we see this phenomenon in relationships today where so many women are opting out of marriage because they themselves has sacrificed everything for this marriage, and then the male in the marriage is still, there's something just that's not enough for him. So while these men may portray themselves as family men, for the most part it's not something that they want, but it's more so societal pressure that keeps him stuck in that engagement. And even still, the stats in regards to the marriage numbers today suggest that what is it, 50% of marriages end after 5 years. People who are getting married today don't make it past 7 to 10 years. They don't. And if they do make it past 7 to 10 years, one party in that marriage, they're miserable. So this is why you have the married single life phenomenon. I know married people who don't even sleep in the same bedroom, and they haven't slept in the same bedroom for years. They kind of are like passing ships in the middle of the night. The husband will sleep in the basement. The the wife will sleep upstairs with the children. And this is what marriage is behind the scenes. Publicly, of course, we don't see that. public, we see, well, they're so happy, all of the posts on Instagram. Thank you, TikTok. Again, double tap the screen. All of the posts on Facebook about how in love they are, when behind the scenes, he's cheating. There's a baby on the way from outside of the marriage, and she doesn't know what to do about it. So, this is what we see, right? And we see this a lot. And it's something that I don't think married people want to admit to, but we do see this a lot. And I think this is why society or the world that we're living in right now has humbled the married woman in speaking about her own happiness within the marriage, because we know that a lot of the times it's not true. And I said this before, especially with the video where we saw the married woman claiming to have been bullied by single women because she was married. And I don't know how that happened. I've never heard of single women bullying married women. If anything, I've heard of the opposite. I've heard of married women kind of shaming single moms. Married women, they shame women who aren't married. Married women shame everyone who doesn't have this situation that they have. So this woman in the video, she claimed that she was being bullied by single women for being married. And that's just bullshit. The issue right now is you cannot flex about being married anymore. You cannot flex about having a husband anymore, because a lot of the husbands that these women are claiming are good men are actually not good men. And the majority of them, from what we're seeing, just on a statistical level, are out there in these streets. Right. So this is what we see. And I don't think married women know what to do about this. So the only joy that they have right now is kind of shaming you, the single woman, and saying that, oh, you're a baby mama, you are single, you don't have a husband. This is the dialogue. But now I think this is a different climate where the tables had been turned on married women. We know that the majority of them are not happy, but they have to keep up appearances because they themselves have been conditioned into participating in patriarchal structure. And I don't think a lot of them want to admit that, but this is just where we are as a society. I think at the same time, you may have a feminist who is married, but then if you look at the constructs of marriage, how does that play out, especially if she's so-called a radical feminist, which I don't know is possible in a marriage, considering the subservient role that the woman has to play in the home. It would have to take a gold star husband to kind of say that, well, no, he's different. He's the one who's cooking, cleaning, doing all of the chores, etc., etc. I do nothing but live and exist in life. That's a different story. I don't really see that, but we're hearing that a lot, right? So this is what it also says on Reddit. It says, and this is just, a guy commenting, and this is just what he said. He said, I've been with my wife for 9 years and I still love having sex with her and find her sexually appealing. Not only that, but the thought of having different sexual partners makes me feel genuinely uncomfortable. I still notice that I find people attractive, but in quite an abstract way rather than an actual desire to have sex with them. I'm sure that sooner or later our sex life will die off, but I don't anticipate that leading to me seeking other partners. The reason I got married was because I felt like I found someone I would want to be with, even if I wasn't having sex with them. Two caveats on this. One, from my own experience, I seem to be the minority in feeling this. Yes, this person who wrote this is a minority. And two, he wrote, I can't read the future and tomorrow I may feel totally different. And his profile was deleted from Reddit, so we don't know where he is today. And it says, does that mean monogamy? This is another question. Does that mean monogamy is unnatural for us human beings and thus inherently unsustainable? Going back to the original question. And it says, this is one of the many reasons why, but 1000% yes. We were never meant for monogamy. It's not a natural thing, it's a cultural thing. This is what he said. So is it cultural? Is monogamy cultural? I think so. I think in the design of the nuclear family within the United States, it is cultural. I think that the storyline was, here's a man, he gets a wife, he gets everything with that wife, including sex. I don't think the time of the invention of the nuclear family that the Coolidge effect was ever taken into consideration. Of course, it wasn't, because we've seen male behavior within marriages, right? We've seen their behavior. There's a lot of infidelity. There's a lot of sleeping around. There's just a lot of things that just don't make sense for the bargain that he's getting, right? For the person that he is and the bargain that he's getting. But let's continue to read. It says, married men of Reddit, how do you feel or how do you deal with the Coolidge effect? After about 6 months, and this is what this man wrote, okay? He said, after about 6 months, I lose the desire to have sex with every woman I've dated after 6 months. So after he kind of shot up the club, thank you, TikTok again. Thank you if you are on YouTube. Please like the live and subscribe. So after he's shot up the club, right, for 6 months, tore down the walls, right? Because this is how people talk. Let's just be honest. So after he's, had his fun for 6 months, every position possible, every hole that he can probably put it in, he's, over it. And this is what he says. After about 6 months, I lose the desire to have sex with every woman I've dated. After a while, I would just rather fat if I get horny, right? And it's not from them not being good in bed. So these are the women who are the acrobats, right? Because you ladies always talk about how flexible you are, how much you can take. Wonderful. This is what the men are saying. Some of these girls, he said, were amazing. I just stopped seeing them as sexually desirable. More of the ho-hum partner in day-to-day life. A new girl would get me aroused, but I'm not one to cheat. Typically, we break up. Not much later. So this is this is what we're seeing here. So on one hand, he's saying that, he gets a girl, in her head she's planning for forever. And that's what women do. They plan and they perform so that the male can pick them. And I know some people are saying, no, women pick. No, according to your favorite Kevin Samuels, he's the one who kind of said men hold the key to marriage, women hold the key to sex. And everyone on the planet agreed with that. When I say it, it's a problem. But this is what Kevin Samuels said, and you all made him a millionaire. But he's right. Ladies hold the keys to sex. So if she's performing and doing all of these sexual acrobats to get marriage, and she's used up in 6 months, and then he's on to the next one, then what are we doing here? Will you ever be enough for the male? I don't think so. So these are the responses to his question. He said, never had to deal with that. This is a married man commenting to what he said. A married man said, never had to deal with that. Married 10 years next Thursday. We are swingers. It doesn't work for everyone, but it works for us. So you see what happens in a marriage. So the man can have his appetite fulfilled. He will suggest swinging, bringing another person in the bedroom. How often have we seen that in our culture, where you have these wives and then you find out behind the scenes they're doing things to keep their husbands interested, which would include what? Bringing another woman in the bedroom. Yeah, didn't we see that with Tiana Taylor? And at one point, I love Tiana Taylor, but I remember at one point, every Black woman on the planet said that she was goals. Her relationship to her husband, everyone posted them. This was Black love at its excellence. And then we find out a few years later, she's bringing multiple people in the bedroom to kind of keep him satisfied. Now, where are they together? I heard that they're filing for divorce, or they could very well be divorced by now. So this is the Coolidge effect. Even though you are married, it's never enough. And we see that because a lot of these men, they will convince women to participate in things that she never signed up for. So here she is pretending that she's bisexual, bringing another woman into the bedroom just so that her husband can stay put. And this happens a lot, more often than you think. And let's just read here. It says the Coolidge effect relates strictly to the reduced refractory period immediately following sex when a new partner becomes available. It has nothing to do with you getting a wandering eye after 6 months. This is what another man said. This says, another person said, that sounds like an awful problem. Perhaps a therapist could give you some ideas on how to avoid losing interest by focusing on other aspects of the relationship, question mark. What other aspects of the relationship is there from men other than getting sexual gratification on a daily basis? I mean, you may get a meal, you may get your children raised, you may get some, a clean apartment, but outside of sex, what is there with men? You know what I mean? And so this is where we are. And so this also says, I recommend waiting at least 6 months before marrying someone. That way you will know if this will be a problem or not. But how many people wait 6 months before they get married these days? It doesn't happen. There's so many, and this is what I talk about when we speak about the contradictory male brain. On one hand, he wants a girl who is pure, but then on the other hand, he wants to sample that pureness so he can see whether or not he wants to be aligned with her long term. But still, where does that leave her? That means that she's constantly at the disposal of men trying to sample her to see whether or not she's good enough for long-term commitment. And when we speak about the Coolidge effect, this is it. Women constantly jump through hoops for men. And when we talk about this phenomenon, I don't think women want to get to the bottom of the fact that you will never be enough. So the fact that you perform the way you do is the reason why many women end up being ruined in the situations that they get in with men. So with 4B, and when 4B says bishekyu, 4B is saying stop having sex with men, period, because it does nothing for you. It doesn't benefit you in any way. A lot of the times women are having sex with men and they're not even getting satisfied from bisexual encounters. It's 10 minutes, not even 10. What am I saying? It's half a minute. With some ladies, it's half a minute and then it's over. And there you sit, having to have had sex with a moron that you didn't even really like that much, but that you were performing for because he probably gave you a Birkin bag. He took you on a vacation. It's very transaction. It's a transaction relationship, and it's icky because it doesn't really give women the power that they think that they have. You're being sampled, you're not being respected. So this is what another man said: being interested in new sluts has never stopped me from being interested in currently available sluts. And so the original poster, he said, I know that the CE is really about the spike of desire to have sex with new females, but it seems to be used today to also refer to the lessening desire to have sex with the same female. That's what I was really talking about. It hasn't been the interest in other sluts that kept me from being interested in my slut. Listen to how men are talking. It was just the feeling of being there, done that. So this is how men view the female body once he does get access to you. Once he does get access to sex with you, after a while, it's kind of like ho hum, pass the butter. There's no interest. And you could do your best in performing, but it's still the same old to him. There's still a desire to try something new for him. And he's basically saying that. And that's what the Coolidge effect is saying as well. No matter how beautiful you are, no matter how, I guess, banging your body is, there's still another woman out there that hasn't been sampled yet. There's still another woman who could take your partner away from you. And that's just basically what it is. So this is what I wrote. Male sexual satisfaction is always ever fleeting, and the porn industry is his outlet in how he communicates to you, the woman, what he so desires. This is $1 billion industry. We all know that the male enjoys female sex subjugation, and this can be seen in his appetite for perversion and how he gets you, the woman, to subscribe to it with suggestions. His desires gets transferred to your psyche, and then you perform accordingly. But here's the issue and the dangers with pornography. Gluck said, the more you watch porn, the more you get desensitized to it, and the more you need ever increasing taboos to get you off or aroused. Think of it as chasing the dragon, if you will, as men always needing more to get their needs fulfilled. You, the woman, sit at the center of this because remember, we spoke about men and thought transference. you are susceptible to his suggestions because you are in proximity to engage with him and explore his sexual proclivities, right? You being in proximity to him, you being near him, you being in the bed with him will make his thoughts become your thoughts. And then you perform things that you don't even want to perform, all to please him because he's pushing that energy out onto your psyche. So, you know how many women out there that aren't lesbians, but they find themselves sleeping with women because there's a man in the middle of that dynamic? You know how many women are not really attracted to women, but they will pretend to be attracted to women because they know this is something that men find attractive? The same men who hate everything homo, right? They say things like no homo or pause, or they'll make fun of gay people all day. But when it comes to two women being in front of them, being intimate, he's all of a sudden interested. And there you are performing like an idiot to get him off. So this is what we talk about when I talk about thought transference and the male. This is what I'm talking about. A lot of women are not equipped on how to deal with thought transference at all. They lack the knowledge base for it. They are very male identified and they don't even know where thought transference comes from. A lot of women never even heard of it. Have you ever heard of thought transference at all? I love thought transference because it's very wild to see what men have convinced women to do. And we've seen this historically. The male has convinced women to do atrocities in regards to her own bodily autonomy, all because of his desires. And I don't think women know about that power. This is why, when it comes to things like cults, or when it comes to like religion, congregations, groupthink, women are more susceptible to it because they don't know how to arm themselves against it. They've never heard of thought transference. They just believe that when a man talks, what he's saying is right. And this is how a lot of women get in a lot of issues and a lot of problems because they don't know how to think for themselves. And they're very separate from the thought to reality pipeline dynamic, right? You thoughts become reality. This is basic, right? This is basic Google bullshit. I'm not a professional. I'm not, you guys are going to say that I'm not educated, which is fine, but this is just reality. So when men present themselves with thoughts, it eventually becomes reality once you also put that with language. Do you understand that? Thoughts, language becomes programming. Programming then becomes reality. And there you sit with newspeak. So remember the other video when we spoke about linguistic tricks? Now we're speaking about sexual tricks as well, but it happens inside first. So whatever perversion, whatever taboo, he will explore it. And then, in order for him to get you to participate, he's going to put that, what is in him, out of him. He's going to put it in the media, he's going to put it in porn, and it's going to be suggested to you, right? So, I just wanted to also read this. I said, remember the Reddit post that I read to you all a while back? It was of the husband and wife couple who magically became interested in threesomes, and the husband suggested that they open the marriage and to invite like new people in. This is what he wanted. And this was a funny situation because the husband later complained that his wife was only sleeping with men and he had hopes of her only sleeping with women while the marriage was open. He believed that his wife was bisexual because a lot of women claim to be bisexual when they start dating men because it's hot. It's hot for her to say that she's bisexual. It gets him more interested. It makes him want to pick her more because she's not like the other girls. She likes girls, and he, in his head, likes that factor because he's always thinking of a potential new partner. Remember, Coolidge effect. Um, he believed that his wife was bisexual because that is what he was told. But I said that her being bisexual, I said this before, was bullshit. Many women are not bisexual, but will claim to be bisexual if it means landing a husband. And that is the case with her. He married her under the premise that she was bisexual and that he was able to cash out on her bisexuality at later dates. She used her fake bisexuality to get him to marry her. The post ended with the husband now wanting to close the marriage off to new partners and the wife wanting for it to stay open that she can continue to sleep with other men. He didn't bank on her sleeping with men, he banked on her sleeping with other women so that he can have that alternative in the marriage. So he set out to do this whole thing, opening the marriage. And he believed, because this is what his wife said, that, oh, she's going to pick a woman to bring into the marriage, and I'm going to pick a woman to bring into the marriage. And it's going to be 3, 4 women and me, the male. This is what he set out. But things happened differently because the wife only started to sleep with men. And I said, they both deserve each other, if you ask me, because this is a prime example of what I was talking about. His perversion, male perversion, always his perversion becomes your order of business. And when many women go out of their way in trying to perform and catch up to his lust and taboo chasing, the male is also very clever in how he presents his perversion for you to occupy yourself with. He will sell it to you as this act that he is now interested in, and is something that you, the woman, will also gain pleasure from, right? And not to get graphic here, but if you ever have if you ever have the time, you could look up the 1970s. I think it's a porn flick called Deep Throat. And if you know the premise of Deep Throat, you know that he wanted for her to do a sexual activity, but he presented it to her as, this will be good for you to do because it will make you feel better. So he took himself out of that equation and presented it to her as, oh, this is not for me. I'm doing this for you and for your benefit. And like an idiot, she participated. And the whole movie is based on her believing that what she was doing for men was her pleasure as well. So when we speak about the liberal feminist and we say shit like sex work is not work, stripping is not work, prostitution is not work, a lot of women get upset with that because they would want you to believe that, oh yeah, I love sleeping with men for money. You don't. You don't. You've been told that you like to do it because this is the narrative that men put out. Oh, women want it as much as I do. A lot of women are poor. They're poor. Some of them are lazy and they would rather, lie on their back to get paid for service. So this is what it is, right? And this is very basic. And this is what else I wrote. He will sell it to you as this act that he is now interested in, and it's something that you will gain pleasure from. That is never the case, but it is a tricky tactic because he can now exploit you to your ruin, all under the guise that this is actually something that is pleasurable to you and why you should participate, right? He's convinced women that, wow, taking your clothes off and sliding up and down a pole is hot. And it's also good for your stamina. It's good to keep you in shape. So you should do that. This is male thought transference in the Coolidge effect. Yeah, so that thought transference is really a big deal, and you will never be enough. You will never be enough for the male. And I think the only times when you do see men kind of sit back to one partner, it's because he doesn't have access to the partner that he really wants. The girl that he really wants is unattainable. And she's unattainable because she hasn't slept with him yet. Once he lays you down, you're as good as done. You're as good as done for. So when you do see men in these long-term commitment relationships, many of the times is because, yeah, he can't really get to what he wants to get to. So he's going to stay put because at least he's getting his sexual needs met on a daily basis. Right? So a lot of men will stay put if it means being satisfied in that situation. He won't go out of his way to try to rock the boat, because if he rocks the boat too much, he's going to be getting nothing. So he'll stay put because he doesn't have access to what he really wants, right? And you will never be enough. This is the Coolidge effect. And as long as any man can program you to believe what he wants for you to believe, you will never be enough. And the reason why you know this is because look at all of the these beautiful celebrities that we've seen in the most recent years, and how I think the majority of them were all cheated on. The majority of them were all treated poorly. And these are beautiful women. Like we can go down the list. Like we can talk about Amber Rose and Kim K and, Tiana Taylor and all of these beautiful women. And for some reason, with a woman that beautiful, to the men, and sometimes the men aren't even halfway attractive, but for some reason, it's just not enough. And I think it's not enough is because of the same thing, like what we're talking about, the Coolidge effect, and how he's after a while, a beautiful woman is boring. Yeah, she's beautiful. And once you've conquered her, you lose interest. So I think that there's this also hunting aspect with the adult human male, that women are more attractive when they have not slept with him. So when we talk about the 4B and we talk about not having sex, it's not to say that we want to be more attractive to men by not having sex with them, but it's more so that men don't deserve the sex that they get from women. And they don't deserve it because one, it's not appreciated. Two, we know that this is his sample phase. And three, it's not really beneficial to you. You're not getting really any satisfaction. He's getting satisfaction, but for the most part, it's kind of like you wasting your time. You getting dressed up to get dressed down. And it's better to not have sex than to continue to have sex and then be labeled as a person with a high body count. And this is what we're seeing with the male brain. Contradictory. In the beginning, and I always say this, in the beginning of the dating app culture, even prior to that, men had this belief that, women were prudes. Liberal feminism also came into play. And I told you before that men intercepted liberal feminism with this idea that, you know, sexual activity is good for the woman and you should participate in more of it because that really means that you are liberated. Why should you be? This is liberal feminist thinking, mind you, which we always say that the liberal feminist is male minded because she allowed him to convince her that being sexually promiscuous is a good thing, and that, sex to her is the same as sex to him. She doesn't have anything to lose because he doesn't have anything to lose. And this, we know that that is not true. We know that when women have sex, there's more of a risk for the woman than there is for the man. But this is again thought transference and how he was able to transfer out of himself into you that sex means nothing. Hookup culture is valid. Sleeping with a random stranger on the very first day that you meet him is something that all women should explore. This was him again putting his thought processes into how women played in society. And then what happened with that? What happened with him suggesting that the woman hook up with random men? She did. Every single thing that the male has said for women to do, women have done it to perfection. So when we talk about women and their good behavior, this is something that I'm talking about. Well behaved women perform. And this is why I think that women are so oppressed for 12,000 years, is because they refuse to believe that the male is evil and that the male is selfish. And I don't know if that has to do with her giving birth to the same male and her actually raising the I have no idea. But it's just funny how women refuse to believe that men are nefarious in nature and are always self-serving. So when in regards to hookup culture, when he told her, yeah, you should hook up with random men. And here's an app, and I want you to log into it, and I want you to make a profile, and you're going to see a bunch of men that you should date and have sex with, right? And women did that. Women all over the country, all over the world signed up to these dating apps, and these dating apps are unregulated. You don't know who you're getting into a car with. Many thousands of women harmed, unalived, killed But women still participate. They still do as the male says, all because they want to be picked, all because they want to flex on other women. So it has nothing to do with, oh, I really love men. No, because a lot of the times you don't. What we see in the liberal feminist thought pattern is her constant complaints about her proximity to the same male that she wants to be centered in feminism. She will complain all day about the clientele of the sex worker, lawmakers, so on and so forth, but she will never exclude the male from her dealings. She'll never do it because she's male minded and he wants for it to stay that way. This is why now the new phenomenon is lesbians, right? And how many lesbians are being bullied into dating trans identified males? And when a lesbian says, well, I don't really like dick, the trans identified male says, oh, you're a bigot. And then she starts to second guess her sexual preference. She's not even allowed to have a preference anymore because you always have a man behind her turning her arm and saying, no, you have to date me as a trans identified male because I identify as a woman. Even though I still have my dick, I'm a woman. And she says, well, maybe you are a woman because I'm a lesbian and I'm attracted to women because this is what the lesbian is saying. She's saying, I'm a lesbian, I'm attracted to women. And the trans identified male is saying, but I am a woman. Even though below the belt is all male. But then he will make her second guess truth. And this is male thought transference. This is male chaos. This is male new speak. I have to confuse you so that I can control you. And we see this all the time in regards to any male ideology and in regards to any groupthink. When we speak about, because I always correlate trans ideology to religion and how both of them are faith-based movements. These are faith-based male rights movement. Religion is men's rights. Trans ideology, male rights. These are male-minded movements, right? So when I talk about that, I kind of say, well, both of them require the person who's in question to participate in a delusion, something that's not real. And this is thought transference again, and how many women have found themselves participating in things that they did not want to participate in, but they were told to because a man suggested it. And because she wants to be picked so badly, because she's bombarded with romance culture, she feels that she's missing out because she doesn't have a man in her corner. So she believes that she's missing out and she's not actually missing out on anything. But again, men have conditioned women to think, and they've conditioned women to think their thoughts. This is thought transference. This is the reason why a lot of women behave the way they behave despite seeing other women being treated the way they're treated. Men have conditioned women to be separate from other women, also that he can ostracize her and exploit her for his own benefit. So I wanted to also get into what they call the 7-year itch. And this is an article from WebMD. And it reads, in the 1955 movie, The 7-Year Itch, Marilyn Monroe tempts her neighbor to stray while his wife and children are away for the summer. Ever since the 7-year itch, a period of restless angst has been used as an excuse for infidelity. Now, a study suggests that such an itch is often a reality. An evaluation of 93 married couples during the first 10 years of marriage showed two typical periods of decline. A decline was defined as a decrease in marital quality measured by taking into account passion, satisfaction with the relationship, amount of shared activity, and agreement between the partners. The marriages stated the marriages started with a bang. If you're liking this content, please continue to tap the screen in TikTok. Thank you so much for that. And also in YouTube, please like the live and share the live and engage with the live. Please drop your comments below. Thank you so much. I'm going to get back to this reading. It says the marriages started with a bang, with passion usually high, but after the honeymoon effect wore off, they showed a decrease in overall quality over the first 4 years. The marriages then tended to stabilize before another decline set in around year 8, says Lawrence A. Kurdick, PhD, the study's author, a psychologist at Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio. The first decline, Kurdick says, is probably a normal adjustment to new roles. The second decline is often related to the birth of children. Couples experiencing the 7-year itch disagree with each other more, become less affectionate, share fewer activities, and express overall dissatisfaction with their marriages, says Kurdick, whose study was published in the 1999 issue of the journal Developmental Psychology. And we know this to be true. And the reason why we know this to be true is because one thing we can bank on is married people complaining about their marriages behind closed doors. We see it online. If you ever go to any Reddit space, look up, you can go to the Reddit called Am I the Asshole? You can go to Regretful Parenting. You can go to any of these Reddit spaces and just read for one day and hear how unsatisfied many men are and women are in these marriages. And the reason why I think they're so unsatisfied is because one, they're not natural, two, they're constructed, and three, it's a lot of pressure to kind of keep that up. But I think what happens with these marriages is, again, the societal need to kind of flex on other people. And that's just what I believe it is. I think at the bottom of all of this, there's this, it's kind of like people who are nobodies, not to say nobodies, because who are any of us, right? Like all of us are just, living this fucking life. But this is marriage and children and the house and doing everything right. And the American dream gives couples, this gold star from society. You get a gold star from being a wife. You get a gold star from being a mother. You get a gold star from checking all of the boxes that the American dream made everyone try to strive to check. You get the gold star for the appearance of things and not how things actually are. And I think people need to have that flex, especially in the Black community, because one of the things that I've seen with Black women who are married, one of the things I've seen often is that they will flex the shit out of their marriage to single women. And I don't know if it has to do with Black women and the statistics surrounding them not being married. I'm not really sure of that, but I know for a fact that there are many Black women who are married, and what they love to do is to wave their wedding finger in your face, their wedding ring in your face. Now it's calmed down though. It's calmed down. And I think it's calmed down because so many married women are seeing that the person that you're bragging about being married to doesn't even want to be married to you high key. He doesn't. And the reason why he is in place is because you keep things in order for him. And he's not trying to, I've seen in Reddit where men are insistently staying in marriages so that they don't have to pay out. They hate their wife, but they will be damned if they will have to give her alimony or child support. So he'll grit his teeth, bear it, be, a monster in the household, but will continue to stay in that so that he doesn't have to take care of her after the marriage is over. And we're also seeing that, we're going to get into marriage because I read something about no fault divorce and how now the move is to take away no fault divorce. So when women are getting into these marriages, these men want it so that you can't get out of a bad marriage. This is why 4B will always be something that I will advocate for, because I don't think women should be getting married. I don't think they should be having children, and they shouldn't be having sex or dating these men. Men aren't telling you that they don't even like the things that women are doing. There's always a complaint. But for some reason, women, and again, I don't know if it's because they're hard headed, women keep participating. And women keep participating because a lot of the times they have no close friendships with other women. They're in competition with other women. And they're looking to kind of show themselves as these gold star members of society. And that's just weird. So let's get back to the article. The article reads the 7 year itch, and then it says, why 7 years though? And the 7 year itch is coincidental, says Kurdick, but it's not uncommon for people to come to a head in a marriage after 7 years, says Lonnie Barback, PhD, a couples therapist in Mid Valley, California. Such was the case of Susan Fitzpatrick of San Diego, California. Not long before her divorce, she had returned to college full time and took her first vacation alone, both of which were signs of growing independence that she says rattled her husband. He struck up an affair after 8 years of marriage. She blames their divorce on a lack of communication and her husband's resistance to change. He suddenly realized he wasn't happy about certain things in the relationship, but he wouldn't tell me even if I asked, she said. Statistics support the idea of a 7 year itch, according to the most current figures available from the National Center for Health Statistics. The median duration of marriages was 7 to 2 years for couples who divorced in 1989 and 1990. So this article came out, it looks like it came out in March of 2020. And then it says singles and the 7 year itch. It is difficult to say if the 7 year itch applies to unmarried people in long term relationships because the research has not been done. Sometimes, however, avoiding the I do helps to keep the courtship alive in a long term relationship, says Barbach. And that's bullshit. This business of being with a woman for 9 years and having 3 children with her, but not getting married is just weird to me that some women will put up with that. But I guess forever a fiance is better than, I guess, a single baby mama. But you are essentially a single mom if you are in a relationship and you're not married, but you have children with this man. If he decides to ever walk out on you, then you are already single. I don't understand how women can get into situationships like that. But again, I'm gonna bank on the fact that women believe they're magical and they believe that babies change men, babies keep men closer to them, babies bring everything together, and that's just not the case. It's not the case at all. Is if anything, babies repel men, and he lose interest in you he after you have a child by him. And sometimes men don't even want the children. There's so many instances of that, of men kind of saying, no, I don't want to be involved in this, but women are saying, well, I love you, and the way that I'm going to show you my love for you is by giving you a child. So it also says, but don't count on it. I certainly wouldn't recommend two unmarried people live together to keep the romance alive, but we see that all the time. Men and women play house all the time. Says Howard Markman, PhD, a marital counselor at the University of Denver, Colorado. People thrive on a commitment in relationships. I don't think so, but okay. Focusing attention on the relationship is the obvious but often overlooked key to marriage longevity, says Barback. Couples with children may have to make special efforts since critics' study found that they showed steeper declines in marital satisfaction than childless couples. He speculates that unhappy couples either avoid divorce for the children's sake or expend more energy raising their kids than nurturing the marriage. But he also points out that couples may find that having children makes them happier overall, which is bullshit. The exceptions, some married couples don't get itchy. Our relationship has only gotten better over the years, said Janine Gribbin of Reno, Nevada, married 17 years. She and her spouse followed Barback's golden rules: give the marriage regular attention. People say marriage takes work, but I prefer to use the word attention, Barback says. Consult your partner before making plans or decisions. And don't, if you both do that, you'll find you both get to do more of your own things. Set aside time to talk on a daily basis, even if it's just 20 minutes. Take time to get dressed up and go out on dates. If a marriage succumbs to the 7 year itch, it's most likely because the couple turned a blind eye to their problems instead of solving them. Elaine Marshall is a freelance writer in Reno, Nevada. Well, that's just it. Marriages, in my opinion, it takes work because they're not natural. This is why it takes a lot of work. The reason why there's so many instances of marriage is it's always been my opinion that when the marriage does work, there's always one partner willing to bend and do anything to keep this union together. And it's usually the wife because she has children. She's been conditioned to believe that, the nuclear family is the way to go. And she's not going to have her children be brought up in a broken home because she's been told that children can't be raised by single women. Children can't be raised by a woman by herself. There's something is going to happen to the child. We hear that a lot in the manosphere. All of the men in prison are in prison because they were raised by single women. All of society is trash because they were all raised by single mothers. So this is what we're hearing. And this is why a lot of women, when they do get married, they try so hard to prevent the Coolidge effect and they try so hard to keep the marriage going, even though they themselves are not happy. I'm going to say this again. The only happiness that a lot of married women have is flexing on the single woman that she's married. Inside of her own relationship, she's not happy. A lot of the times we see that. And I think with the video that I spoke about before, and the woman saying that, she's bullied by single women. I don't think she's bullied, but I think what's happening to a lot of married women, they're losing that influence that they had prior on the single girl. Prior, she was able to brag about, her wedding and her wedding dress and her bridal shower and being the center of attention and all of these things. And now there's so many women opting out of it because after the wedding, that's kind of all she gets. So of course, she's going to get this huge production of giving herself away to this man in a white wedding dress. Yeah, because look at the trade-off that she's giving. Look at the trade-off that she gets after she's sold off in her wedding dress. Her life is therefore then sacrificed to him. So her last hurrah is the marriage, is the wedding. This is the last time she's going to get anything in resemblance of that magnitude of appreciation. No, after the wedding, after the white dress comes off, it's off to work you go. So, yeah, weddings are wonderful and women love them. But to me, weddings have always symbolized, well, this is the big ending for you. And because it is your big ending, because this is your first death, let's make it extravagant. And let's put you in a white dress and have everyone pay attention to that. But women don't see it that way because they've never been conditioned to see it that way. But if you read enough radical feminist literature, you get to the same conclusion that, the wedding is just a sale. It's just a remarkable sale. It's a production to kind of show the world that you've been bought and this is the end. And I think in regards to the Coolidge effect, even though that this is the end for you, it's not the end for him, especially when it comes to him and his sexual desires. So you will be at home. The burden of the household will be placed on you. It's your death, but to a marriage, it's his revival. It's his second chance. It's his glory. He gets to benefit the most from it. So there's no benefit with marriage for women, even though a lot of married women would kind of say, yeah, there is a benefit. There isn't. And we see this because there's so many people who don't even stay married. And we all know, of course, that, 50 years ago, women stayed married. They had no choice. They had no rights. They had to stay married. But this day and age, women are able to kind of take care of themselves. And I think these men in power would like to reverse that, and they would like to kind of put women back to what marriages looked like in the 1940s and the 1950s. And I think that also has to do with how America looks on a whole. It doesn't really look good that, they have these statistics, these sweeping statistics that 50% of married couples end in divorce. It doesn't really look good on a global level, especially when you plan this thing out for the nuclear family under patriarchy. If there's no family, then what is the drive? So I think men have to find a way to construct this notion that you should be happy with marriage. You should be happy with one partner. Him, not so much. He's going to do whatever he wants to do, and we're always going to see that. But for you, you need to be put in order because you are the one who's going to uphold the male. And you should be satisfied and glad that you're doing that because, again, you were picked. So when we talk about sex work and we talk about prostitution and when we talk about these things and we say that sex work isn't work, married life is work. It's work. And it's usually work for the woman in that if she is a stay at home mom, or if she is a person who's not employed on her own, then she's at the mercy of this man who can decide any day that he doesn't want to do it anymore. And there's a younger, better, faster woman, Coolidge effect, that would like to be in her place. And we see this all the time with the whole trad wife phenomenon. Women doing exactly what they're supposed to do, and then they get slapped in the face with a newer pick, new pickings. So when we talk about the Coolidge effect and how you will never be enough, the reason why you will never be enough is because we exist in a society where men have at their disposal thirsty women. And she believes that if he picks me, then I'm banking rich. And we see this all the time. And we see so many instances of um, men participating in this and saying that it's okay. And women, because of this participation, they never prepare for the end of things because I'm going to keep saying it. Women are conditioned to believe that they're magical. And when you believe that you're magical, you believe that what happened to other women will never happen to you. And this is why so many women get, bombarded or they get knocked over when the marriage is over because they never prepared for the ending of a marriage. They thought in their heads that marriage would be forever, and it's never forever. It's never forever. And there's another thing that I wanted to read in regards to the 7 year itch and how there's a Reddit space and it talks about the 7 year itch in marriage, and you should see what these men are saying, how they feel about their wives after, I think it's the 5 year and the 7 year mark, and always this because we do still have dating app culture out there, and married men know this. This is why they're so frequent on these apps because they have their pickings, right? They have their pickings. They have their pickings on these apps, and this is why you see so many married men participate in infidelity. So I just wanted to read this. My husband had an affair for nearly a year, and I just learned about it. My husband had an affair for nearly a year, and I just learned about it. Mind you, when these couples say that their husband had an affair, these individuals are living in the same household. So remember when I said something to the effect of sometimes you have people in houses and they don't even speak to each other. They're like two passing ships. I have a friend who was married and he's living in the basement. The wife was living upstairs, but he was mostly in the basement. And that's just how they existed. So her husband cheating on her for a year and her not knowing is actually quite possible. Do you know how many people live in the household with another person and they don't even speak to that person that they live with? It's kind of like a silent roommate situation. And then as the children get older, those children are used to transfer messages between two adults back and forth. This is how adults behave. Instead of just ending the marriage, they would rather keep the facade up that, we're doing well. So this is what it says. My husband had an affair for nearly a year, and I just learned about it. I'm sitting here at my parents' house with our 3 kids and pregnant with our 4th. Okay. A few weeks ago, a woman reached out to me on Facebook claiming to have been in a relationship with my husband and asked if I knew anything about her. This post was posted on Reddit 3 days ago. Okay. At first, I didn't believe her, but she sent me screenshots of texts from his number to her detailing meetups, sexual encounters, and lovey dovey stuff. We moved from our native Mississippi to Florida in February, and that's when they stopped seeing each other. She said he never told her he was married and had kids. Of course, he's never going to tell her. that he's married and he has kids. What man comes out and says, I'm married with kids. Would you like to sleep with me? Even though it has happened that some women won't really give a shit and will go for it anyway, especially if he's, wealthy enough. When I confronted him about it, he said he had a moment of weakness, and I'm not sure what that means. A moment, she put in question mark. He saw her for almost a year. Remember, this is the Coolidge effect. He's getting everything that he needs at home. This man is going on 4 children, so it's not like they're not having sex. They are having sex, but the sex is not enough. And because the sex is not enough, here he is cheating on her for a year with 3 small children and her being pregnant. It says, just a few days prior, I told him I'm pregnant with our 4th child. Our beautiful family has been destroyed by his selfishness and lack of control. Our beautiful family has been destroyed by his selfishness and lack of control. Please double tap the screen. Thank you so much for being here still. It's not the fact he was attracted to another woman that I find so offensive. She's pretty, whatever. It's the fact that he'd even consider doing something that would break our family apart. I love our life together. We have such a beautiful family, but his liaisons with this woman were more important to him than all of that. It's always going to be more important to him. It's always going to be more important to him. Women plan for forever, and men plan for right now. Men plan for right now, women plan for forever. And this is what it's always been. And so when we talk about monogamy and the Coolidge effect, this is a prime example of it. He's getting his needs met. He has a wife, he has children, he has a home, he has a beautiful family, but it's not enough. It's not enough. Her sacrifice of her body, her time, her having children, her laying down and having a cesarean section or a vaginal birth, all of the work that goes into that. He looks at that and says, "Hmm, okay, it's not enough for him to stay put." And this is what I want to relay to the public today. Your sacrifice would never be enough to the male because he can always do better, or he can always go out and do something that he wants to do. Not to say that it's better, but he's always going to have the privilege of having the ability to select from a multitude, because there's always a woman who's out there who won't ask questions, who participate in the delusion, and who'll sacrifice herself when it comes to sex, because she believes if I do have sex with him, if I am intimate with him, he'll pick me. And a lot of the times he won't. So it says, we have such a beautiful family, but his liaisons with this woman were more important to him than all that. He's not the man I thought he was, and my world has completely shattered. I'm going to try and get some rare sleep. I'm still nursing our 10-month-old baby and dealing with all of this stress and heartbreak with 2 older kids. A few weeks ago, I had the life of my dreams, and now it's all shattered. 10-month-old baby, pregnant with the 4th, 2 older children, husband is cheating on her. Coolidge effect. This man is having sex. This man is having sex. It's not like they're in a marriage and they're not sleeping together. So he's having best of 2 worlds. And she's ruined over it. He's satisfied. And then some of the comments I'll read, it says, see a lawyer as soon as possible so you can start preparing. Keep all evidence of the affair and show it to the lawyer to see if it can help, if and when you divorce. But now I'm reading that in certain states, if you're pregnant, they're not going to give you a divorce. So she's kind of stuck with him until further notice. And what is she going to do? If she's a housewife with 4 children, is she really going to file for divorce? What is she going to go out and do? Get a job? Get a career, go back to college? You know how difficult that will be with a 10-month-old and a newborn and 2 older children on her own? She shot herself in the foot. She should have, planned for her ending now by establishing herself with a career and education, money, but she didn't do that. She was sold on the idea of the nuclear family, and that was it. And it says, has he shown any remorse? The moment of weakness comment makes it sound like he's just shrugging it off as no big deal. Are you sure he hasn't met up with someone else since y'all moved? And the original poster said, I don't really know if he feels remorse. Ever since I left with the kids, he's been more apologetic. He hasn't threatened to sue for the kids or anything. I'm currently living with my parents in Mississippi. The devout Christian, here it is. The devout Christian in me wants to be open to forgiveness. But that part of me also wants to set a strong moral standard for my children and not let them think their actions have no consequences. Here it is. She's not even out of the fourth pregnancy yet. He's not even said sorry to her, not even kind of semi remorseful, Coolidge effect, and she's already talking about forgiveness. The Christian in me. You see what religion did to women? It warped their minds to accepting the bad behavior of men because women accept the bad behavior from God. God and men. You accept trash behavior from men because you've been conditioned to accept trash behavior from the Christian God that you serve. And the Christian God that you serve watches you all struggle, left you here with his homeboy, the devil, and then expects for you to kind of struggle through that, through what they call spiritual warfare. So the more you love this imaginary God, the more shit that he puts you to go through. Isn't that convenient? Isn't that just like a man, though? The more you love men, the worse he gets. So the more she shows her love with her body and her sacrifice and her having children and keeping house for him, the more she's treated like shit. Isn't that similar to the God of the Bible? I don't know. You can put your comments and let me know what you think, but I seem to think so. The reason why the Christian in her wants to forgive is because she serves a God who promotes forgiveness regardless of treatment. Regardless of treatment, you're promoting forgiveness, and the person who did something wrong to you didn't even apologize. So, why are you already busying your mind with forgiveness? It's because of the Christian in her, like she said. But we'll read some more of these good comments. Yeah, so you'll never be enough. And instead of women kind of saying no sex, they continue to have sex, believing that sex will bring them to um, a place of attention with the male. I think they believe that if I do give him sex, if I do perform this way, he will pick me over the other girl who's potentially not doing what I can do in the bedroom. And how do you know what to do in the bedroom? It's because of the porn that he kind of put out and told you what he likes. So the porn has nothing to do with your satisfaction. It has all to do with him and his satisfaction, and you believing that him getting pleasure is essentially your pleasure. But then that doesn't really make any sense because there's so many women who are claiming that they're not even having good sex with men. He's having great sex, right? He's having a wonderful time. But you are four babies in and you never had an orgasm. This is what we're reading. This is what we're seeing. And it's because of male behavior. And let me just finish reading this. I put the Coolidge effect. It's seen in the adult human male and his animalistic desire to taste, touch, sample, and fuck. So it's him that has the unquenchable desire. And because of this desire, you will never be enough for his satisfaction outside of a placeholder or a dick warmer, as they call it. And when he can't get someone new, and that is what marriage is. The wife is an appliance, and once she is used, she is put back on the shelf until her body is needed again. His desires are new. His desire is new flesh, new meat, a new smell, and most of all, new company. Simply put, the Coolidge effect is just a fancy way of saying that after a while, and after a few pounds, and after a few babies, his once love muffin gets hella boring. And it is in this boredom that her shelf life and self esteem takes a hit. Do you also remember the Clara Harris story that I told you about? I think you all remember the Clara Harris story. Clara Harris was recently released from a Texas prison after doing 20 years for red rum of her husband. She red rummed her husband in a hotel room. And just to give you a backstory of Clara Harris, and I was obsessed with this story back when it came out because I felt that how can this happen to this beautiful woman? And she is from Colombia, a dentist, a beauty queen. And she met another dentist in, I guess, Texas, and they both got married. And she had this amazing life. They were able to set up their own dental practice, pulling in thousands of dollars of cash. And she later then has a set of twins, so she gets pregnant, she has twins, and the marriage starts to fail. And long story short, she finds out about the affair because the whole office knows that her husband is now sleeping with the new 20-year-old secretary that he hired, right? So he's sleeping with this secretary every day. Him and the secretary, they're going on lunch, they're going to a hotel. Clara, being a new mom of twins, also working herself to keep household down, doesn't know that this is happening. And once she finds out, she confronts her husband and they go out to dinner. So they go out to dinner and she says, what is the allure with this new girl? Right? Remember, keep Coolidge effect in mind here. So she says, what is the allure with this new girl? What is a problem with me? And he says to her, well, your body is just really big. Mind you, she just had children. And when I'm sleeping with this new girl, it's like a fantasy. But I'm going to read what I wrote. And I put, she was the dentist beauty queen from Colombia who got fat. That's what he called her after having twin boys. And do you remember what her husband told her after he started to sleep with his 20-year-old secretary? He told her that the 20-year-old was new and that sleeping with his new 20-year-old was a dream. He said to his wife that she gave birth to the twins and her ass was fat and she was unattractive. Never mind the fact that she was a working professional who also gave birth to twin boys and went back to work shortly thereafter. No, her husband didn't give a shit. What made him feel brand new was the new woman that he was having sex with. This is men, ladies and gentlemen. So, just to tie in the whole story of Clara Harris, this woman decides to take back her marriage. She says, I'm not going to lose my husband. I'm not going to lose my family. I'm not going to lose you. Her husband then says, okay, so you won't lose me, yada, yada, yada. He swears to break off the relationship with the secretary. He, of course, doesn't break off the relationship with the secretary, but Clara, thinking that he was being honest with her, says, okay, he told me he's going to break up the relationship. I still don't trust him, so I'm going to hire a private investigator to kind of follow him. The private investigator decides to follow him, follows the husband and the secretary to a hotel room, and then calls Clara and says, well, yeah, that thing that he told you about him not seeing her anymore is a crock of shit. They're in a hotel room right now. So Clara decides to drive to the hotel and kind of confront him with his daughter in the front seat, which is terrible. And so she confronts him and she sees him in the hotel room. But what happens, I think how she fished him out of the hotel room was by having his daughter call him and say that there's something wrong with the twin boys and for him to come home. He later comes down from the elevator and Clara and the secretary get in a fight in the hotel lobby. The private investigator is on the block watching this whole thing come down because, again, Clara hired this private investigator to follow the husband. So the private investigator is in a cut with the camera rolling. And so they get into a fight. Her husband, I think his name is David, leaves with the secretary, and Clara loses it because, according to the interview that she had with Oprah, she kind of said, oh my goodness, she's taking my husband, she's taking my world away. And prior to this, Clara had already, she got a set of implants, she lost like 30 pounds, she dyed her hair blonde because the secretary was a young blonde. She did the most to kind of get her husband back interested in her. And long story short, she kind of runs over him in the parking lot of the hotel room. And it's all caught on video by the private investigator that she hired to follow her husband. So she could have probably gotten away with the murder or the red rum. Sorry, TikTok. But the person that she hired to follow her husband submitted that evidence to the prosecution, and she was sentenced to 20 years in in prison, and she just got out. She made parole, I think, in February of 2024, and she's out of prison. She did her 20 years and she's out. But this is again Coolidge effect. You have a beautiful Colombian firecracker, and she's still not enough because she so happened to have children and her body doesn't look the same. So when we talk about the Coolidge effect and women not being enough, this is just an example. You can sacrifice your all thinking that I'm doing this for the betterment of us. And he's looking at it as your body isn't the same though, and I'm not attracted to you anymore. And now I have to cheat on you because I'm not attracted to you and I need to have sex. And this is what he did to her. And so many women kind of I think they kind of related to her. They offered her support, even though what she did was wrong. Many women understood. But again, do they understand? Because even though women claim to understand, they still get themselves in the same situations that they see women getting themselves in. But now I think that climate is changing. I'm thinking that now more and more women are opting out of marriage. More and more women are opting out of childbirth because they're paying attention to these tragic stories of women doing everything right, and then the everything right that they're doing blows up in their face. It blows up in their face. And then, their lives are ruined. They have these children to look after. Some of them end up, next to homelessness, in prison. You know what I mean? And this is just what happens when the male is in the life of the female. He's chaotic. He's delusional, he's filled with drama. And that spills over to how her daily life is. So when we say that 4B is peaceful and 4B is freedom, it's not because we hate men. No, it's because it's an actual truth. When you don't have chaos in your life, it's free. Men bring chaos. Men are dramatic. And with the Coolidge effect, men will bring other women into your dynamic and it will be a mess. Men are chaotic. Men are filled with drama. And so if you continue to read this Reddit story about this woman who's pregnant with her fourth and already has 3 children, you read the comment section, and most of the men in the comment section are saying, "Oh well, just give him just give him a second chance." Men make mistakes. What if this man brought her home an STD that could take her away from her children? So we already see that they're not using protection. We don't know if he's using protection with this girl. So you see how dangerous this is? You see how dangerous the Coolidge effect is for women? The reason why this is dangerous is because you're putting yourself up. So this belief that, sex for all people is the same is just not true. Women have more to lose when it comes to engaging with men. But men have convinced women, no, let's just hook up because sex is nothing. It has no meaning. It has no meaning. And when you sleep with me, it's fine. I'm not going to judge you, but of course that's what he's doing. Because he goes and he tells his friends that, well, I only knew her for 14 minutes and I had to buy her a cheeseburger and there she was laying on her back in my bedroom. So sex is different for women. So there's another comment and I wanted to read it, and it says, "My parents should have divorced but stay together. Trust me, the kids know an unhappy marriage and it sucks. I would love to have had a split household rather than be in a forced one. Your husband is a piece of shit. Your husband is a piece of shit. A moment. He does not last for a year." I think the person meant to say a moment does not last for a year because her husband claimed that he had a moment of weakness. Moments of weakness don't last that long. It's a one night stand and then it's over. But if you've been sleeping with another woman for a year, this wasn't a moment of weakness. The 1 year is a full on relationship to these young people, right? You get a child support. Somebody said you get child support and alimony and be done with it, right? But this is tricky because the minute that, okay, so she was cheated on. The minute that I think she goes to court and asks for these things is the minute that his interest will now turn to her children. The children that he probably doesn't want or give a shit about, but he's not gonna make her cash out on his benefit. He's gonna want to now be interested in getting custody and doing all of these things. And this is what happens a lot. So I wanted to also read what I wrote about. This is men. I wrote before, and I said Bishekhu and 4B says no sex for a reason. And this is a firm no because of the nature of the male. He doesn't appreciate women, so he does not deserve sex. Mr. Chad, I'm sure you know who Mr. Chad is on TikTok, said that to a man, having sex is like using a toilet bowl. And while many women are so emotionally invested in sex because they believe it means something, men don't really give a shit about it. They can get it from anyone, especially if he is getting it from the woman who he has been sleeping with for some time. Remember the rats in the beginning of this video? The male rat had already slept with every female provided to him. They wanted more of him, and he was halfway interested. He was halfway interested, is what I wrote. It was only when a new rat was introduced to the scenario that he found a new interest, even though he was exhausted with having sex with the previous women that he just had sex with. That's what it says. The rat was exhausted, but that exhaustion went out the window once a new chick came into the box with him. And it says, are male rats and adult human males the same? I'm not saying that, but let's continue with that thought though. Some men have it all and will ruin it for a situation like that, all because of sex. How many instances have we seen men ruin their entire lives because of sexual perversion, lack of control, and, a willing partner? We see that all the time. A man will ruin a 15-year marriage to get laid. Sex is big for men. This is why the Coolidge effect is a thing. It's because for men, sex is the ultimate, and he has to have it. If he's not having it with another man, he'll have it with another woman and be in a relationship with you. And we're seeing that a lot. Remember back in the 90s when they had the whole down low phenomenon? How many Black women at that time period came down with HIV/AIDS because they were sleeping with men who they believed were committed to them? And these men were not committed to them. These men were sleeping with other men. And at one point, I remember the statistic reading that Black women were so with like the number one cases of HIV/AIDS at one point in time. This was in the early, I want to say mid 90s, right? And there was a book written by, I forget his name, but it was a whole book that he wrote. I don't know how old you are, but the book was about men, Black men being on the down low, and Black men being on the down low and infecting Black women. And Black women just couldn't get it because, again, she believes I'm everything. I'm the bomb. I'm amazing. How can you cheat on me? And he's like, watch me cheat on you. And it happens all the time. And we see it happening, and we see that it is a pattern. And with these patterns, women still engage in unprotected sex with men. They don't like to use condoms because he doesn't like to use them. Right? He doesn't like to use condoms. This is why now they have the recent study that HIV is on the rise, chlamydia is on the rise in Texas and in Atlanta, gonorrhea, things that they saw, I guess, STDs that they saw that were kind of leveled out over the years have now, there's a new spike in gonorrhea, syphilis, chlamydia. Women are no longer using condoms. Why? Because men have convinced them sex is better without condoms, and I'm okay, I'm clean. And she, of course, believes it, thought transference. And there she sits, with clap. There she sits with gonorrhea. There she sits with syphilis. And we know from the other study that these STDs come from certain animals. So this is how they all this is how they all spread. One man slept with one animal, and that turned into what it is today. And here it is being transferred to you, and you have no idea about it because you are trusting of the male. And this is a problem. This is problematic. So that's the Coolidge effect. You'll never be enough. You will never be enough for the male. So it's better for you not to try. Because if trying means that you are put in a predicament where you are unsafe or are at risk, it's better for you to not participate than to continue to participate and hope for the best. No sex. No sex. You're not having fun anyway. So that's Bishekyu. That's 4B. No sex. You're sleeping with men and you're not happy anyway. Even in relationships, if you're going to have sex, then use protection. And trust no one with your body because of what it says about the Coolidge effect. You think that you're enough and you are guaranteed not enough. There's always someone better. And we see that with all of these celebrities out here who are getting cheated on. And who are they? Who are these men cheating on these celebrities with? Girls who work in Pizza Hut. That's who he's cheating on, like Kim Kardashian with. Someone who's, you would never think. Look at remember when Arnold Schwarzenegger had the affair? This man was married to a whole Kennedy. Have you seen Maria Shriver? Like, not now, of course, but if you are old enough, have you ever seen Maria Shriver when she was young? Beautiful woman. Who does Arnold have a baby by? The maid. Have you ever seen The Maid? Go to Google right now and look at The Maid that Arnold Schwarzenegger had a baby with. Men will literally fuck anything. That's Coolidge effect. He had a baby with the maid too. He slept with the maid, cheated on his wife, slept with them. It was a huge scandal. And here we are, right? Yeah. The Nick Forus Pilotes, the Nycphorus vespiloles. That is a burying beetle. And I wanted to read from the National Library of Medicine about this beetle and the Coolidge effect. And this is what it says: the ability to recognize individuals. This is the abstract, I'm sorry. The ability to recognize individuals is an important aspect of social interactions, but it can also be useful to avoid repeated matings with the same individual. The Coolidge effect is the progressive decline in a male's propensity to mate with the same female, combined with a heightened sexual interest in new females. Although males that recognize previous partners and show a preference for new females should have a selective advantage as they can distribute sperm evenly among the females they encounter, there are few examples of the Coolidge effect. Here we present evidence for this effect in the burying beetle and examine the mechanism underlining the discrimination between familiar and novel mates. Burying beetles feed and reproduce on vertebrate carcasses where they regularly encounter conspecifics. Males showed greater sexual interest in novel females, virgin or mated, than in females they had inseminated before. The application of identical particular extracts allowed us to experimentally create females with similar odors, and male responses to such females demonstrated that they use female particular patterns for discrimination. The chemical analysis of the particular profile revealed greater inter-individual variation in female than in male particular patterns, which might be due to greater selection on females to signal their individual identity. So this is just another example. What's a virgin, what's new is what's alluring to the male. This is why even in religion, there's a focus on the virgin, on what's new. I guess you can call it new sex, new vajayjay, new vagina, new whatever. It's just an interest to the male when he hasn't sampled it yet. I have to keep it clean for TikTok and YouTube. If he hasn't sampled the woman yet, what's new to him is more attractive. It's more alluring. And women can't compete with that. It's just something natural. And when it comes to male and sexual perversion and taboos, because he is exposed to such a porn saturated industry, the woman that he does have at home will chase the dragon with him. She will start to perform different sexual practices. Now she's doing anal. Now she's having, he wants to do it in her ear. He wants to play with her feet. It never ends because he needs that gratification. He needs that. It doesn't end for him. And she has to participate in that because of thought transference. He has to transfer out of himself what he wants for her to do. And she will always do it because in her head, it's, I need to keep my husband. I need to keep my marriage. I need to keep this together. So he will transfer out of himself. I want a threesome. I want anal. I want this. I want that. And she will perform. She will perform. I want you to put on a strap on. She will perform as long as it means I'm going to keep my husband intact. I'm going to keep my marriage intact. So men need variety. And this is just an example of that, the Coolidge effect. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for listening to me this whole time. Thank you, TikTok, for tapping the screen. Thank you for all the roses. If you are listening right now in YouTube land, thank you so much for liking the live and sharing the live. Remember, I have these seminars coming up. I'm very excited about it because I'm working really hard on these seminars, the female erasure seminar and the spiritual critical seminar that I'm working on. And these are really expensive. It's a lot of work to put this all together to kind of have it as an online course. So you'll be able to walk away with, slides and PDFs and all this other shit that I'm working on. But I want for women to kind of get into the knowledge of female erasure and what it is and how we participate in it and how, again, we are being finessed by male ideology to kind of perform. So thank you again for listening to me in regards to this Coolidge effect. Let me know what you think. Please get into the comment section. Please get into the comment section. And remember to like, share, and subscribe the video. Subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it. Hello to all the new followers. I saw I got a few followers on YouTube. I like that. Thank you so much for listening to me. You don't have to. You could listen to a thousand other professionals and bigger content creators on YouTube, and you're here listening to me talk shit. But thank you. I appreciate it, and see you next time.